All right, just want to do a little recap. And then also I thought of some new stuff at work today. This stuff actually goes back a long way. It does. It goes back at least 3 years. I mean, it probably goes back more than that. So very interesting. But anyway, so we got Moses Malone who just died. His name adds up to 71. You also had Daryl Dawkins who died at the age of 58, which I'll explain later. Or maybe not, but I've previously explained it why it ties in. The Ten Commandments adds up to 71. And the reason that's interesting is because Moses, I must have forgot to put it in there, Moses equals 17 and 71. And then Nebraska, where Lincoln, Nebraska is where the Cornhuskers play. And Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, just like Moses. And our media has been running a Civil War type theme, actually for more than just this year. This year seems like it's really kind of built up a lot more, though. Seems like it's really just building up. But it has been going on for a while, and I'll actually talk about that in a little bit. But that's why it all ties in. Nebraska, their stadium is the Sea of Red, so it's kind of like the Red Sea. You know, Moses and God parted the Red Sea, whatever. I'll explain that as I'm going down here. So in Gematria, Lincoln adds up to 34. Civil War, 34. Charleston, where the Civil War began, 43. Also, we had the church shooting this year with Dylan Stormroof. He was born on 4-3. There are tons of stuff with that. I'm going to skip over it. The Civil War began in Baltimore, Maryland. Maryland is 34. All these Marine shootings or whatever that have been in the news, Marines 34. Abraham Lincoln, I've talked about it before, where he was born on the 43rd day of the year, became president on 3/4, died 4 years and 3 days after the Civil War began. Just before he became the president, Kansas became the 34th and last state to join the Union. 34 days before 3/4, and then the 20th Amendment changed the president from starting on 3/4 to January 20th, which is 43 days apart, and the first president to begin his presidency was on that date, 1/20, was the 34th president. It was Eisenhower, he was also the 43rd term president. But the reason of that amendment, and I thought of this today, was because they wanted to decrease the lame duck period. And lame duck, with the K exception, where K is 11 and not 2, is 34. Also, look at all these Moses references. So, Exodus, and then he was a Hebrew, 34. They were trying to escape from the Egyptians, 43. He turned his staff into a serpent. When he threw his staff, it turned into a serpent. Serpent is 34. Red Sea, like I said, he parted the Red Sea, 34. They were going to the land of Canaan, 34. And even if you look up Canaan here, it even says the name Canaan, or however you say it, is used commonly in the Hebrew Bible with particular definition and references Genesis 10 and Numbers 34. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But anyway, let's go back up here. So we got Moses went to the top of Mount Sinai to whatever for the 10 Commandments and whatnot. Sinai, 34. You also know Moses from Passover, 34. You also know Moses from the Golden Calf story, 43. And I just typed in Moses sheep, just for whatever. These are the lamb's blood and whatnot. And Moses sheep is 43. And I typed in Lincoln sheep. And Lincoln sheep is actually a real thing. It is, I think it's the biggest sheep that are in the UK. So, I mean, it doesn't have to mean much. Just thought it was kind of interesting. The largest British sheep are called Lincoln sheep. So, who knows? And just throwing one more in there. Doesn't really necessarily tie into Moses, but Jesus Christ is 43 and Pythagorean Gematria. Also, Lincoln sheep is 60, which I've been seeing 60 like crazy as of the last week or so. Like Moses Malone died at the age of 60. I talked about it in the previous videos. I'm not going to go that much more in depth because I want to get into what I was going to talk about. So I was sitting at work today. I used to be a Miami Dolphins fan, and I say used to be because now that I know that sports are just completely rigged, I'm not even a fan anymore. It's like, I just don't care. The only reason I watch it is to show that it's rigged. I mean, it's kind of terrible, but anyway, I remember, everybody's got to remember the Miami Dolphin bullying case, right, with Jonathan Martin and Richie Incognito. But in my head, I thought Richie Incognito was a former Nebraska Cornhusker. And interesting, look at this, the picture even of Jonathan Martin here, 71. Like, he doesn't even play anymore. He actually retired like a couple months ago. But anyway, let's check out the story here. So the bullying scandal, it says, for the 2013 season, Martin was slotted at left tackle in order to replace Jake Long, who had left in free agency, blah, 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 blah. On October 21st, the Dolphins signed Bryant McKinney to take over at left tackle, moving Martin back over to right tackle. And then they talk about Martin wasn't happy about it, but he said you can either just bitch and moan about it, or you can just be the guy who goes out there and says he'll be the latter, like play as hard as he can. So he says he's going to go out and do that. That was on October 21st. Interesting, too, that Back to the Future Part 2, the day that he goes to, they go to 2015. It was October 21st. So who knows? I know this is from 2013, but just interesting that I've talked about the tie-ins with Back to the Future, and then it's the October 21st date. Anyway, the scandal or whatever never started. It never went public until October 30th, 2013. He left the facilities 2 days earlier, blah, 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 and you find out that it was because Richie Incognito was bullying him, and Richie Incognito got suspended on November 3rd. So 113, once again. Tons of stuff with that, but going to move on here. So let's look at the names in Gematria. Richie Incognito, Jonathan Martin. I can't even spell. Richie Incognito. 158. Jonathan Martin. 158. Alright, but there's also this other guy in this story here. The reason that it sort of happened is because of Bryant McKinney. So let's check out Bryant McKinney. $158. What are the odds of that? No way. No way that's not rigged. I mean, come on. But anyway, I don't want to take up so much time. So Bryant McKinney, let's look at this guy. Look when he was born. September 23rd. I mean, that put me for a loop right there. So I guess actually before I move on, I want to show you the gematria of some of this stuff. So just Richie 52, a number we've seen coded over and over this year. Also, reduction, let's see here, 43, interesting. So we'll do his last name here, 52, and 106. What are the odds of that? No way. These are numbers that we've seen coded over and over this year. Interesting, too, Incognito didn't play all of last year, and then now he plays for the Buffalo Bills. That is the same place, the Ik Enemkan guy or whatever. He also, he got cut by the Jets, because he beat up Geno Smith. He plays for the Buffalo Bills now, too. And his name in Gematria, 106. And 52. Also, the Buffalo Bills, that's the 1960, established in 1960, 55 years ago. And that means 1955 was 60 years ago. And I talked about in the Nebraska stuff, I started seeing a lot of 55. So, so who knows? Buffalo is in New York. So the Pope is going to New York as well as Washington, D.C., and also Philadelphia. Also, I talked about 71. With Moses is 71 and all that, so I just typed in 71. And it's 144, which is very interesting. Not only if you break it up as a date, would that be the day Lincoln was shot? It's 144. Tons of stuff with it. And I mean, it's a lot to explain. It ties into the 12 tribes of Israel. 12 times 12 is 144. Ties into Queen Elizabeth. She's 89. 89, there's 144 days left. Obama's the 44th president. 44 adds up to 144. April 4th, kind of like 4-4, adds up to 144. There's so much more. It'll take too long to explain, but very interesting. Now, I remember when this Jonathan Martin thing happened, the bullying thing, I remember looking up the high school that he went to, and in the news, right around the same time they started doing all the gay agenda stuff, where you had Jason Collins, who came out, the first NBA player to come out as gay or whatever, or maybe it was all sports or whatever. And then right after that, you had the bullying thing a few months later. And then you had a few months later in February, you had Michael Sam come out as gay, whatever. So, and then even the Miss USA or whatever it was, remember Miss California said that she didn't agree with gay people and it was a big old deal. So this stuff really did start well before I thought it did or whatever. So the 52 and whatnot, it's been around, but it's all about the Civil War and the gay stuff and whatever that I've talked about, how it all connects in tons of previous videos. So Jonathan Martin went to this high school, Harvard Westlake, and also then Jason Collins, the gay guy, the gay NBA player, went to this college as well. You don't find his name, I can't find his name on this list, but if you go to here and you find this guy's brother, Jason Collins, it shows you that same school. So he went to this college. They both went to the same high school. They also both went to Stanford. So I wanted to check out the gematria here. Westlake, Harvard. It adds up to 168. Talked about that a ton. And also 60. I mean, if you go back and watch my previous videos, I talk about the number 60 like crazy. It all has to do with things that are happening in the news lately. Lincoln, Nebraska. Abraham Lincoln. Oldsmobile, that's 50, but Oldsmobile, I believe, is 60. Rosh and Hashanah, or whatever, the same day that Moses Malone died, was the first day of that. And then the 168 is like Queen Elizabeth, Taylor Swift, Beyonce Knowles, West Philadelphia. Tons of stuff with it. They also both went to Stanford then. And Stanford is, of course, 34. Oh, what am I doing here? And then in simple gematria, it's 97. And 97 sticks out to me because Dolphins is 97. Also on that note, I guess, Jason Paul Collins, his name, that's his full name, adds up to 58. When he first got another job in the NBA, it was with the Nets, the New Jersey Nets. Nets 58. Something I never mentioned about the word 60 as well. I talked about how 60 ties in with the 34. 60 also adds up to 97. And then Pythagorean, it's 25. But that's with if you do the S exception, it adds up to 34. There's a lot of them words that I showed you before down here where they were 34. A lot of them are actually 25 as well, except for the S exception. And what did we just have last night? We had Jamal Charles, number 25, who fumbled the ball, or whatever, the rigged thing. 25 adds up to 50, just like the Chiefs. Chiefs is 50. Also, I forgot the number, if you add up 25, it adds up to 149. So Obama was born on 8/4 with 149 days left. But the day that Abraham Lincoln died, April 15th, it also adds up to 149. And of course, I'm going to make a part 2 that ties into the Har Bowl. But anyway, last night also, Von Miller, number 58, by getting 50 sacks in 58 games, it's the third highest ever. Or the third fastest ever, but let's look at his name in gematria. This is his full name here. His full name adds up to 85. So gets 50 sacks in 58 games, adds up to 85. Just craziness. See you in part 2.